Alright, I know, this video is a little late, don't at me, I was on holiday, but I'm back and I'm raring to go. Today's game is once again developed by Tarsier Studios, and the game in review is the eagerly awaited sequel to the last game we played, Little Nightmares 2. Not content with one game and 3 DLCs, Tarsier Studios have seen fit to give us a bigger, beautiful, and even more horrifying game than what 2017's original gave us. Let's take another dive into this perfectly morbid world and see if we can determine what its true score is. This time around, we're playing as a new character by the name of Mono, a small boy wearing a paper bag over his head who seems to have a similar tie to the Thin Man seen at the end of the first game's DLC as Six did to the geisha. We're away from the moor this time, and instead we're in a place called the Pale City, a truly evil place distorted by the signals emitted from the tower the Thin Man occupies, where every living thing is warped by the Thin Man and his TV signal, which seems to enslave all who watch it. There is one bit of brightness to be found along this journey, however, as you're not alone this time around. You play through the game with a companion who happens to actually be Six herself. What is Six doing here? What happened to the crazy powers she got at the end of the first game? Where's her raincoat? Right from the start, the game has so many mysteries making you want to push through this awful world. If you've played the first game or you've watched my review of it, you should know what to expect with this game. There's no big shake up of the formula here, but some of the ideas presented in the original game's DLC have been expanded into fully fledged elements of the core gameplay, and there are some totally original new mechanics to be found within. You'll be doing plenty of sprinting, grabbing, climbing, crawling, throwing, and jumping your way through all the nightmarish areas found within the game, but this time around, having an AI controlled partner adds a whole new element to what kind of puzzles the game can throw at you. I found that it helps to make the areas more realistic and let the devs go a bit more wild on both puzzle and environment design. Probably the only bit of levity found throughout the journey is the fact that you can hold Six's hand whenever you walk with her. It's nice to know you're not alone in this awful place. One huge shake up to the formula is the fact that this game has actual combat in it. You'll still have plenty of the hide and seek style stealth sections you saw in the first game, but now in certain sections there are weapons lying around for Mono to grab and fend off attackers or break down obstacles. This creates a whole new and different vibe that I absolutely love, but it does come at a slight cost. The weapons and animations can be very finicky, and you need to be pinpoint precise with the moment you attack, or you're just going to get insta-killed again and again and again. The last major addition to the gameplay comes in the form of traps in the environment for you to avoid or even use to your advantage to take out your enemies if you're clever enough. These can be surprisingly brutal, and they definitely make sure to keep you on your toes at all times. The game from start to finish is a lot more difficult this time around. Puzzles require a lot more thought, reaction times need to stay high, and your jumps better be tight because there's not a lot of room for leniency. No doubt you've seen from the footage already that the environment design ranges from amazing to breathtaking. This is one of the prettiest games I have played in a hot minute, and I can't describe how much I love the art style used in this series. There are many areas that Mono and Six traverse throughout their journey, from a backwater swamp and shack, to a school, a hospital, the city streets, and more which I won't spoil. Each area has its own visual theme, brand of horror, and boss monster to puzzle together how to defeat, so you'll always be seeing something new and disturbing at every turn. It's apparent quite early on in the game that this sequel is shooting for more of a strong horror feel than even the first did. There were actually more than a few moments in the game where the tone stepped into full-on horror vibes, and my heart started beating a little faster as I was trying to get away from the Pale City's inhabitants. The soundtrack does a lot to help establish this darker, more bleak and scary tone by almost ditching the playroom horror style of music from the first game and mostly opting for a moody, isolating sounding OST. Listening back to the soundtrack while writing this, I can really see the entire thing as quality, and it really says something that I'm feeling tense sitting in my chair on my phone just because of these tracks. This game does more than darken the tone to try to one-up the original game. Another is that there's a lot more replay value to be found here. Instead of 2 somewhat useless collectibles to find like the first game, there are instead 2 useful ones that you might actually want to explore out of your way to find. Mono has a bunch of different hats that he can find and wear across the adventure, from the hats the little gnome guys wear, to a policeman's hat, and even a stuffed bear for a hat. The other kind of collectible to be found here are other kids hidden around that are made of what looks to be TV static. These might seem pointless at first, but if you want to know more about how this game ties into the first, then you will definitely want to collect them all, trust me. I was pretty impressed by the replayability this time around, that being one of my complaints with the original game. Making one of the collectibles a cosmetic thing was a great idea because while the game is fine without finding them, at least you feel like you get a real sense of reward when you do. This game is also considerably longer. I got about 5 hours worth of playtime out of it, which might not sound like much, but for a 2.5D puzzle platformer, seems about the perfect length without it dragging on too much. Whether or not this game's playtime is worth the cost is going to be a matter of taste. The game set me back about 45 Australian dollars, but I thought it was well worth it. I've talked before how I'm a huge fan of the visual design and tone. If you weren't a fan of the original, or felt like it wasn't worth the money, this game will do little to dissuade you, but I'd still say 100% grab it if it goes on sale. I think this game is a must play. Getting close to the verdict now, clearly you can tell nearly every aspect of this game is a huge tick. Nearly every problem I had with the original game has been improved here. Twice the length, better collectibles, and everything else I already loved has been improved even further. For horror and platforming fans, there's really no reason I see to be skipping on this game. Tarsier Studios have proven that the first was no fluke. They're masters of environment design, sound design, creature design, horror, and ludonarrative storytelling. If I have anything bad to say at all, it's that the combat is a little too precise with its timing, and I died too many times pressing attack just a couple of frames too early. But I mean, I guess my fault for being bad too. You can probably tell the score is going to be high. Well, it is. Little Nightmares 2 is going to receive a true score of 9.5 out of 10. If this is the level of quality that Tarsier Studios can put out, then I hope to God we can see another game in this franchise to tie up all the loose ends. I need more of this in my life, and I'm so glad they did actually make this sequel. That's going to be about it from me on the game. Just wanted to say thanks for watching, and if you made it here to the end, please feel free to subscribe. I want to eventually be doing weekly game reviews, so I hope we can get to that point. Thanks for your time. Alright, catch ya.